Woe is me. Shame and scandal in the family. Woe.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Nikki, Aurora, and from me. Mickey doesn't want to sit with us because Mickey is fed up. Oh dear. Well, oh dear. Sorry for laughing. I have a little announcement to make. Those who wanted to see the pig on the Christmas tree, I've taken the photograph. I'll ask that it be posted at the end of this, okay? And for those of you who are interested, on Saturday, we are going to be posting for Christmas, Hark the Herald Angels Sing. It's actually, I don't by and large have favourites, but it's my favourite hymn, Mendelssohn, just wonderful. And I recorded it at the performance on Sunday of the Worthing Philharmonic Orchestra. And I did the whole thing from beginning to end. So we'll have that as a Christmas treat. And now, without further ado, I'm going to plunge in with another sort of treat, because I have been speaking to one of the finest lawyers in this country and getting the, shall we say, assessment of the damage that has been done to Harry's bank account. The breakdown of the damage that has been done to Harry's bank account in terms of how much David Sherborne alone will have charged Harry. And let me tell you something, it is monumental. No wonder David Sherborne floats around being so precious, because he's certainly worth his weight in gold. Mary Luck says, did the King pay an unofficial visit to the courts just before we heard the outcome of Harry's case? Yes, he did, and several people have found this very ominous. But they don't realise that royal visits are agreed up to 6 months in advance, and certainly several months in advance. Twice a year they have diary meetings, and engagements are logged and they are respected. The King's visit to the courts, the High Courts of Justice, incidentally, would have been planned months ago. As for Mr Justice Fancourt's judgment, he made it over a series of months. It is 300 and something pages long. That's right, 300 and something pages long. He didn't dream it up on the afternoon of the King's visit and decide, oh, I'm going to make Harry win. The judgment had already been done, had been in the system, and it is just an unfortunate coincidence. And I'm not naive, and I'm not covering up for anybody, nor am I going to blame somebody for something that isn't his fault. It's just unfortunate that the judgment came almost to coincide with the King's visit. The King didn't meet Mr Justice Fancourt. he had no connection whatsoever with Mr Justice Fancourt, and Mr Justice Fancourt's 300 and something page judgment blatantly could not have been done right after the King's visit. Not even the part relating to Harry, because it was 4 defendants. Harry's was in some ways the most extensive. So do the math and you'll see how ridiculous it is when people suspect that there was a fix. There was no fix. There was no corruption. There was no nothing. Okay? Now I'm going to read out to you some really juicy stuff. David Sherborne is arguably the most senior junior barrister in this country. He's a junior because he's not a King's Counsel and he's not likely to be made a King's Counsel either. But he was the leading barrister in the case. So he performed as if he were a KC, that's King's Counsel, as if he's a senior barrister as opposed to a junior. His status is junior, but his performance level and fees are senior level, as if he were a KC. He's not going to be made a KC, I am told, because he has antagonized too many people in the legal profession with his abrasive and pushy attitude. So, and I'm sure he knows that to be true and fair. He will have made millions out of just this one case. There were 4 defendants, 2 of whom have one of whom has a very deep pockets. The other 3 didn't have such deep pockets, but 2 of the other 3 were with one of the senior firm of solicitors in this country. Harry was with Clinton's, which is extremely expensive and doesn't do conditional fee arrangement agreements, and certainly wouldn't have done one with Harry. The Michael Lavelle, who is referred to as Michael Turner, and the actress whose name escapes me at the moment, they were with Charles Russell. Charles Russell used to be King Edward VIII's lawyers at one point. They're very eminent. I've actually benefited from Charles Russell's presence in the past, let me put it that way. Very unlikely they did conditional fee arrangements either. And the 4th, the ex-wife of the comedian, she was with a rather good but not grand defamation law firm. Whether she was on a conditional fee arrangement or not is arguable, because they all had such weak cases that it's very unlikely that they would have been on conditional fee arrangements. What is more likely is that they might have had assistance with their funding from some of David Sherborne's supporters who have very deep pockets. Now, I'm not mentioning any names. You're not going to hear me say anything about Elton John, nor are you going to hear me say anything about Hugh Grant, whose pockets aren't as deep as Elton John's. I'm not going to speculate as to who might have been funding the case, but it is very unlikely that David Sherborne, even if the solicitors were on some sort of arrangement, it is very unlikely that David Sherborne was on one. And it wasn't only David Sherborne that had to be paid, it was his junior. So, and each of the defendants had his or her own firm of solicitors. So you had 3 solicitors for 4 of them, but each solicitor was a solicitor within a firm. So there were 2 separate solicitors in the Charles Russell firm dealing with the case. That meant each lawyer got as if it were one case. David Sherborne got as if it were one case 4 times over. Well, wait for what his prep fee, his preparation fee would have been. Approximately £500,000 per case. And remember, there were 4 not per case, per client. And there were 4 separate clients in the case. So that's about £2 million right there. He then would have had a brief fee of per client, and that would have been at £750 per hour is his charge out rate approximately. And the cases were so weak that it is very unlikely that he was going to give anybody a break unless he felt it was in his ultimate financial and reputational interest to do so. However, it's not such a good look to lose. His daily refresher for the duration of the trial would have been £10,000. So each client was going to be paying £10,000 for David Sherborne's daily refresher. Do the math. Do the math. £10,000 is the minimum. It most likely was £20,000 was the daily refresher. We're speaking about millions of pounds just in David Sherborne's pocket alone. Then you have the junior, his number 2, so to speak, who would have been on less, but not so much less that it wouldn't have been painful to each of the clients. And remember, they all lost. The 2 women lost entirely because they were out of time. Michael Turner, otherwise known as Michael Lavelle, he only prevailed fractionally. 3/4 of his case was thrown out. And more than half of Harry's case was lost as well. So they don't only have to pay their lawyers, they have to pay Mirror Group's lawyers as well. Oh dear, oh dear. So I thought that might interest you, because I don't think you're going to be hearing such a detailed breakdown from anybody else. That, who knows, maybe you would, but I suspect you wouldn't. So, having said that, I will now say what Blue Sky Eyes says. How is the current scandal re Lilibet's godfather going to affect the Harkles? May I point out that Tyler Perry has not been named by anybody making a complaint against him. I saw that clip by the gentleman, shall we say, who was announcing what is effectively threats against an unnamed high-profile person who people have decided is Tyler Perry. Well, he said nothing of any substance to convince me that anything the person he was accusing of what he regarded as terrible conduct had actually done anything illegal. Paying somebody $100,000 for them to strip, just looky, no touchy, is not illegal. In fact, I would say it's a pretty damn good deal to make light of it, because, I mean, he must have been pretty desperate to be wanting to charge, to pay that amount. And there is nothing illegal about courting someone if you are not harassing them, if they have not told you that they don't wish to be involved in a courtship. There's nothing illegal in it. It struck me that this is possibly somebody hoping and to get a settlement and seeking a settlement with all sorts of, shall we say, unsaid elements. I need to be careful legally what I say. So, even if it turned out to be Tyler Perry, I cannot see so far that Tyler Perry has broken any law, and it would be very unfortunate for the American legal process if rich people then have to buy off people who make threats to avoid being accused of illegality when there has been no illegality committed. Of course, the rich person might take the view that, well, I'd better pay them to get rid of them. This is what Michael Jackson did with his accusers, and it rebounded pretty adversely upon him, and he ended up being tried for something completely separately. And I have a great deal of sympathy, I'm going to say, for people in the public eye who are vulnerable to being nobbled with accusations of illegal or untoward behavior when they have actually not committed anything untoward or illegal. You know, there's no need for us to feel, oh, well, he's rich, he can afford to pay. I'm sorry, a shakedown is a shakedown is a shakedown, which is unacceptable. I'm not accusing this young man of shaking anybody down. I make that point for legal reasons. I'm totally going off what I saw on that tape. And what he said, the supposed public figure billionaire was trying to achieve. You know, he could have easily said, I'm not interested, don't phone me again. And if he did, that becomes another matter. But if he didn't, so I don't see that at this moment, going off what I saw on that video, that Tyler Perry or anybody else has anything to worry about, save being dragged into an unsavory melee, which would be very unjust. Of course, you say how it will affect the Harkles. Well, if the melee starts, some people will say, oh, we don't like them, so we're going to, decide that they have done something they shouldn't have done, which is be friendly with somebody who is accused of untoward behaviour. Well, I'm afraid I don't agree with that either. I think what we know of the relationship between Tyler Perry and Meghan and Harry is that he really was extremely generous and obviously rather naive, and was bedazzled by their royalty. So I don't see that he's guilty of anything but poor judgment, and they're guilty of nothing but opportunism. I mean, if somebody's going to be a patsy and you're a leech, of course you're going to jump on Patsy's body and suck. So, but they have rewarded him, obviously expecting further rewards down the line, by making him Lily's godfather. Having said all of that, he was very nasty and negative in the Netflix about the royal family, disparagingly so and unnecessarily so. And some people will feel, well, he put the boot in, they're going to put the boot in. Well, I understand that. So, but as for where it's going to affect Harry and Meghan, they're not going to come out of it covered with glory. But I can tell you something, Tyler Perry, I'm pretty damn sure, isn't going to come out of this, if he's named, with anything approaching glory where Meghan and Harry are concerned. They're going to dump him as quickly as they dumped Jessica Mulroney, or Mulroney, whichever way her name is pronounced. That's my take on it. Ferocious Gumby says, the dragon is a symbol of Wales and appears on the Welsh coat of arms. Could this have anything to do with the Prince and Princess of Wales? Ferocious Gumby, you are obviously referring to Harry's statement that basically he's in the business of slaying dragons. I have spoken to people, and they say it is well within the realms of possibility that Meghan and Harry, but Harry at Meghan's behest, because Meghan has Catherine firmly in her sights and therefore will not be missing any opportunity, and now I know this from people who know Meghan very well, to put the boot in. And she also is very covert, and she gives hints, and we've all seen her in operation, whether it was with Oprah or somebody else. She lets you complete the sentence for her. And evidently, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that a dual threat was issued with a double entendre, because Harry could have been referring to one thing while actually also referring to another. And there are people who think he was referring to both at the same time, and that he didn't come up with it. Megsy Baby did. Oh, Megsy Baby is so fruitful. Not only is she fruitful in terms of producing babies, but producing double entendre and trouble as well. J.C. Whittig says, this is why the IRS is currently tracking them down. Archewell Charity was created as a non-profit with the huge tax breaks. Now the charity has changed its purpose. It is now transformed into a foundation. Now that they have morphed into the Archewell Foundation and are no longer a non-profit, taxes are going to be much higher than a non-profit. They may be hit with a huge bill for back taxes and lying on their tax returns. Now the IRS is coming to get its money, and as many know, there are all our IRS. As many know, you say there are, but no, it's the IRS always gets their cut. They can say bye-bye to their non-profit tax breaks they've received in the last 3 years. Well, I think we need to be absolutely clear about what Archewell is. The filing is a 501c, which is a mixed profit and non-profit entity, to use Meghan's favourite word. Some aspects of it are for profit and some are supposedly non-profit. It is called the Archewell Foundation, but it is supposedly in part non-profit. Now, non-profit, because we have an international community, and this is a particularly American situation. In the United States of America, in particularly in Delaware, you have non-profits, which are effectively organizations that have charitable status, but the fundraising is not done publicly. So what we generally in the rest of the world would call a charity or a real charity is actually a public charity. There are two categories of charity in the United States of America: a public charity and a private charity. The private charity is the non-profit, and it is funded by the people who set up the non-profit. They might get donations from third parties, but the fundraising part of the non-profit is not open to the public. So I hope that explains the situation. So it's Harry and Meghan, of course. Meghan does everything to confuse everybody, and she's so clever that she thinks she gets away with it, and maybe she's going to be clever and get away with confusing Uncle Sam and the IRS. Oh dear, let's have this little piggy flying, and let's have our main piggy flying. Megsy baby, when the IRS comes after you, How are you going to bedazzle them? Oh, I'm so sexy. I'm so hot. I'm just so fabulous, and everybody's in love with me. Oh, let me bat my eyelashes and one tear left eye. Oh, I didn't mean anything. I really didn't. Let's wait and see what happens. Because, of course, all you Americans have the absolute right to ask the IRS to investigate Archewell and how it has been performing. I mean, I think the main thing to go after is, despite these declarations of millions of dollars that are available for Archewell, they don't earn any interest or income. That means the money isn't there except when it's been filed for. And if it is, it's sitting in a non-investment, non-interest earning account. Because that's what it looks like. So it's up to you, Americans. Do as you please. But I hope you understand the important difference between a non-profit and something that is for profit. Okay? And of course, Meghan, so clever. I just work both sides of the room at the same time. Just so clever. I'm just so clever. I come up with the most wonderful ideas 8 days a week. I'm brilliant. So brilliant. You can't believe it. Penelope Wells says, in America, we call Archewell a PAC, a political action committee. Well, it's not, of course, a committee, is it? It is a registered non-profit and for-profit corporation in Delaware. And maybe, I'm not familiar with the term a PAC, but to me, a political action committee, in England, a committee means something entirely different from a company or a corporation. But I defer to you, Penelope Wells, and thank you very much for that observation. Quirt Y1 says, Dear Lady C, please clarify a point regarding Archewell's giving to charities. Have they actually donated or have they pledged? Amber Heard pledged her divorce settlement to a charity without actually giving the funds at all. And she's not alone, as various celebrities also play this game. Yeah, Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor were notorious for it. It is lovely to see your Christmas tree twinkling in the background. Season's greetings to you and the fur ladies. Ladies indeed. No, they've given. They've not given very much relative to what they have available according to their accounts to give. They have given very little compared with what they have paid out to staff and what they have paid out to lawyers in legal fees. But they have given. They have to give. If they don't give, they can't have the wheeze flying through the sky as high as it is doing at the moment. Mandy Mass says, Dear Lady C, looking fabulous as always. Thank you. Harry desperately wants his day in court. Besides fighting the press, he is using this platform to get even with certain people. As if out of all the 100+ cases he claimed to be a victim of phone hacking, Piers wasn't even working at the Mirror any longer. It was only one claim that Piers could have been involved in. Phone hacking is despicable. But Piers wasn't the main person, yet Harry went after him. A few months ago, when he was in court without any evidence, he smeared Paul Burrell, Diana's former butler. Now he has a go at Piers. Who will be next? He's got 4 more cases pending, and he will make use of that. I hear what you're saying, and yes, he set out to smear Piers. Piers could only have had any connection whatsoever with one, and I'm pretty sure that David Sherborne scratched around in that chicken coop, obviously using the help of chicken foot people to come up with the one thing that they could then use to snare Piers, and that Majesty so conveniently was there to overhear Piers being told. And remember, Meghan Markle got Piers dismissed because he was dismissed. It was constructive dismissal. When you're given a choice as Dame Caroline, whatever her name is, I've forgotten. I think it's McCall. Oh, I found the woman so odious that I can't even remember her name, despite having used it repeatedly. She gave Piers a choice between leaving or apologising. Well, really being fired or apologising. Apologising for saying he didn't believe a total liar. That's constructive dismissal in this country. Meghan got Piers dismissed, and I am told by people who know Meghan very well that she is one of the most vengeful, vicious people that it is possible to have had the displeasure of encountering. She will stop at nothing when she has someone in her sights. And as was proven in the bullying investigation at Buckingham Palace, they don't even need to have committed an offence or harmed her in any way. She targets people. She targeted people at Buckingham Palace, and she has targeted people since. And yes, there's little doubt in my mind that you're absolutely right, Mandy Mass. Harry has targeted Piers Morgan, with Meghan's doubtless capable assistance. Liz Hodges says, I just saw a video showing Meghan Markle playing an intern packing boxes for an Instagram coffee advertisement. Wow! Just speechless. How the mighty have fallen from the royal family to Instagram commercials. But seriously, how far will the British royal family let them go before they decide to stop letting them drag the royal family titles in disrepute? Well, the royal family have their policy and they are adhering to it. And it is working to the extent that Harry and Meghan expose themselves as opposed to having anybody else expose them. Yes, I saw that clip, there is Meghan doing noble work, helping with a company she is an investor in. And I'm not going to mention the name of the company because I see no reason to assist in any way, shape, or form. It's commercial. It's a commercial enterprise, commercial activity. And one of the reasons how I came to write my book, Meghan and Harry, The Real Story, is that the palace were concerned about Meghan's determination to merge her royal status and utilize any connections she had made or could make or would make or will make in the future to plug in as if royalty is the electric grid and she wanted to suck as much electricity out as possible so she could shine brightly and her bank account would shine even more brightly. She's doing what she left the royal family to do. Marching, making money for herself. Pity it's going to turn out to be a heck of a lot less than she would have ended up benefiting from had she remained within the royal fold. But to do that means she would have had to be stuck with Harry for the remainder of the time she was in the royal family. And when she left, if she was going to leave, she would have been leaving with little or nothing. She was avoiding doing a Sarah York, as simple as that. I've said it before and I'll say it again. B.G. Paris says, the phone hacking thing sounds way more sophisticated and worse than it actually was. Step 1, phone the person's number. Step 2, push star. Step 3, enter generic standard network PIN, e.g. quadruple 0. If the person was stupid enough not to have changed it, then just listen. I can see why the journalists were so easily tempted. As a young teen, we used to do it to our friends' phones and change the answering message to a very, well, let's say rude one. Thanks for that. You see, most judges in this country are as naive as I am about technology. And they obviously think that phone hacking was a terrible thing, that they went to great lengths. I mean, the fact of the matter is, nobody should have been hacking anybody else's phone. It was an invasion of privacy. But I hear what you're saying. And there's a reason why the Lord's Prayer says, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. All those lazy, ignorant phone users who were celebrities whose phones were hacked, who didn't change their code, well, I wouldn't say they had only themselves to blame, but they certainly made it very easy. So I hear what you're saying there. Catty Blue says, I genuinely think the case against the Mirror was instigated by Meghan and is and was only ever for one purpose, revenge against Piers Morgan. Well, I think you're onto something, because Harry has previously said, and said it in court, that he undertook the case to protect Meghan. I don't think it's only revenge against Piers Morgan. I think it's much more than revenge against Piers Morgan. It's trying to silence Piers Morgan, because he has dared to speak the truth about Meghan. It is also an attempt to silence or muzzle the press and the internet on both sides of the Atlantic with a many-pronged approach. The Aspen Institute trying to create scenarios behind the scenes with alliances with people who will then, in whose interest it is also to muzzle the press. Because remember, Meghan and Harry have secrets they don't want people to find out about. Well, I think to an extent you're right, but I don't think it was revenge against Piers Morgan. I think it was to shut him up. And they succeeded for a while, but he bounced back. Ella Edge says, Harry is so obviously thick, but he lectures ordinary people as if we need educating. Most people that I know are fairly intelligent, so it totally infuriates me. It certainly annoys me as well. I mean, there you have this brain-dead creature who has only one brain cell and it's not even above his neck. And he is trying to make declarations that will influence the way we think, the way we speak, the way we relate to each other, what we read, what we look at, or what information we have access to. It is arrogance of the highest order. I mean, most very privileged people are quite arrogant, but some of them actually have a connection to reality as well, and their arrogance is modified by an awareness of the realities of their situation. That doesn't mean they're not going to push harder than somebody who is less privileged, but it means that they're not going to step over the invisible line. And also, many privileged people have principles, and their principle isn't revenge, and their principle isn't tilting at windmills, and their principle isn't worshipping at the altar of a malevolent creature. And their principle isn't betraying the interests of all that they were brought up to represent while having jumped ship, so to speak. So you're right to be infuriated. I find it actually insulting that Harry especially feels that he is in a position to lecture people who are more intelligent, better educated, better read, better everything but connected than he is. Faye Lohim says, Dear Lady C, you throw sassy succinctness out like noir coconut confetti, so refreshing as a Caucasian Zimbabwean that you uplift all nations and unapologetically honor your British roots too. This world needs honor, not more shame and divisiveness. Humble bragging, grifting, and duplicity in the midst of such privilege is the most distasteful thing of all. I see people on the ground here who have absolutely nothing who don't trumpet their daily good deeds and selflessness to the whole planet, who have more dignity in their pinky toenails than those two donuts. It's laughable, but also very sad. Narcissus fell in love with his own reflection. He did not and could not find or love his true self. Narcissism and obsession with false light is an endemic sickness that is being deliberately encouraged and weaponized by the corporate funded media. And these two, sorry, ephemerides embody the archetypes perfectly. Could it be that we are also fascinated by this story because they are reflecting a collective shadow? I am interested to hear your take. Oh dear. I love it. Philo hymns. Very funny. I would recommend to those of you who don't know what ephemeride, sorry, ephemerides are, that you look up the word ephemeris. That's the singular. It relates to the constellations and the stars, and it's actually a very sound element, but it's very, very well used in this situation because Harry and Meghan consider themselves absolutely fixed points in the universe for us poor schlumps to follow, in much the same way that astronomers, etc., relate to ephemeris. Sorry. Sorry. I'm sorry. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. They are divisive. They are destructive. They are detrimental to family living, to the smooth running of anyone and everything. They are absolute pains, and they are so delusional that they actually think that ephemeris should be their Christian name. Unbelievable. But yes, I absolutely agree with you. They think they are fixed points in the constellation, not because of their knowledge, not because of their decency, not because of the results of their conduct, not because of their intelligence, but because of their egotism, because they are actually, in my view, two of the grossest egotists that it has been my experience to behold, and flagrant egotists as well, because most egotists will have at least some compunction and possibly enough good taste to not be so flagrant and not flaunt their egotism with the way these two jerks do. I mean, they are truly pathetic. But you know, there's a reason why Icarus singed his wings. Harry and Meghan fly very high, and my goodness, their wings are being singed. They are two horribilities who, if you lose the letter N out of what the Queen referred to as her annus horribilis, they are enjoying, and I use that word sarcastically, their own annus horribilis at the moment. And I have a feeling next year is going to be even better. They're going to have such an annus horribilis next year as well. They are really something else. They really are. None of this, I've said it all along, but I have to say it again. You couldn't make any of this up. If you wrote a book about this as a work of fiction and sent it to a publisher and said to the publisher, I will give you £1 million to publish this book, and it's a reputable publisher, about this stupid prince and his arrogant airhead, low-grade actress wife. And this is what they get up to. Every reputable publisher would reject your work and say, thanks, we don't need the money. We need our good reputation more than the money. It is so unbelievable that we could not insult the public by expecting them to accept such an outlandish, bizarre story as capable of happening in reality. And it's happening before our very eyes. Quite astonishing when you stop to think of it. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this was of some interest to you. Please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to speak about. And for what it's worth, I am going to be doing videos throughout the season. Okay? So to those of you who thought I might not be, or those of you who wanted me to, I'm going to. It will be possible. Okay? Thank you so much. God bless. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and Godspeed.